Hello, this is Sabina at Cross Keys Crafts. Today with this month artist trading card swap for visible image. The topic is something beginning with S, and I thought I will use this lovely snail. That's from the latest release. It's called Don't Hurry Be Happy, and it's the snail stamp and then the Don't Hurry Be Happy sentiment, but I'm not going to use that. I'm just going to use a snail stamp. And I've also got a sentiment that I will put on the card to go with the ATC, but I might also put it on the ATC itself. Depends on the space I can play around with, which is Sending Sunshine, because it's another thing beginning with S. And this is from the Daffodil set. I can't remember the exact name now. So yeah, that's what I'm going to do today. And what you can see here is I had a play around yesterday with two of my new ink pads. I saw these in a YouTube video and I got absolutely carried away because the inks are just amazing. These are from Lisa Horton Crafts and I ordered them from her webpage, and I'm going to link to that below. And these are some pigment ink dyes, but they have got two colours. They have got a solid colour, and I'll show you this, and this is why I had to get this. Usually my camera doesn't pick up pink as bright as it is, and yeah, if I look through my camera now, it doesn't look very pink. It looks more like a reddish thing, but it is absolutely bold pink, and this is just amazing in real life. And the other one, if you just look at it plainly, is like a teal color. This actually looks a bit green, but when you apply it, it's teal. But what it does is this. I'll show you my swatches here. So this is the pink and this is the green. But you can already see they've got some shimmer to them. So they've got a built-in shimmer. This one, the teal one, has got like a purplish pinkish shimmer. And this one has got a bit like a champagne shimmer. This is why it's called pink champagne, and this is a teal twist shimmer. But when you apply them on black cardstock, you can actually see this even better. And I assume they've got some mica powders in them or so, but I absolutely love these. And I love the colour combination. I don't think I'll get more of these, but I'm really happy with the purchase. So yeah, so I had to play around with these. And I had a thought how I can combine the black and the white background in one card. So I came up with creating a background that's got both the white and the black, but I wanted it to be solid black. And I wasn't quite sure whether like VersaFine black ink would give me the background I needed. So I used a stencil. This is also from Visible Image, spiral stencil. And I actually used some acrylic paint through that. And I just applied that onto the white cardstock, let it dry. I had a few smudges here, and you can see there's a little blob there, but it didn't matter. It doesn't matter. And then once I had dried, I applied the pink champagne shimmer over it, and you can see this there. So it gives it a bit of a uneven bit there. I think this is where the paint was actually thicker, but you can see you've got the pink and then this lovely mica shine to it. And then this is what I'm going to do with the ATC as well. I had masked off my snail underneath, but when I stamped it on afterwards with black, I can hardly see this now, I actually had it, didn't position it correctly, so it was a bit off because I had left a gap here for the, do you call them feelers or whatever. So when I was doing the sentiment here, I thought, you know what, I can actually stamp this again with white embossing powder. And now I actually really like the contrast of the white against the pink and the black. That's obviously not really black anymore, but if you don't have any light on it, it's still quite dark. So that's what I wanted to do today, but I decided against using the acrylic paint again because, as I say, it was a bit splodgy. And I thought, what can I use? And I decided to use my StazOn ink because I know this is going to be solid and this will be safe to use other inks on top. You probably can educate me. You probably would be okay with the VersaFine. I just didn't try it because it is obviously water soluble. So I didn't want anything to smear. But because stays on everything, I didn't want to use it with a stencil. So what I'm going to do today is to do some masking with some washi tape. So I have already prepared a little card. This is bigger than my ATC because I want to cut it to size afterwards. And one mistake I did yesterday is I cut my mask like this just from copy paper, but I was a bit lazy and I just laid it underneath and it did move around a bit. So today I'm going to glue it down with the washi tape so I know I'm going to have this fixed. So I'm not going to move it around when I do some ink blending over it. So this is just some old washi tape. I don't really use it for anything else. And I want to, just thinking what I want, I think I want to cover this bit a bit. So I'm going to do some diagonals, because if you work on a diagonal, you can never really see if you're not even. If you have it straight, it's easier to detect it. So I want to cover this, because this means whatever I stamp here will be on the pink background and more easy to see. Sorry, easier to see. So you could obviously mask with anything else. You could use some masking magic if you wanted to. I'm just keeping it simple. You could do some squares if you wanted to. I think I just go for the stripes today. And I'm just eyeballing this. I'm doing one more here. And just a tiny little bit on the top there. So to apply my stays on, I just decided to use a makeup sponge. I haven't fully tested that. I've only tested that on a piece of scrap paper, but I think that might be fine. This is actually my swatch, so I tried that before, and I think it'll work nicely. So I'm just using this like this. I have re-inked my stays on as well, so it should be juicy enough to apply solid layer. Yeah, there you go. Just want this to be solid and not to have it too streaky. I'm just checking that I don't need to put another layer underneath. That might just be fine, because I don't want this on my craft mat. So I'm going to speed this up now for the video. Okay, first of all, I've got some bits on my ink pad. I don't know if you can see that. I don't know, might be the sponge that's dissolving. So I'm just rubbing that off so they don't end up on a stamp where I don't want them. I don't know if you can see them now. So it's just to clean that up, because I'm going to throw this in the bin. This just costs pennies. So if I did a card straight away, I would use it again, but I think that this is the only one today. So as you could see, I went in stripes first, but where the mask was on the edges, I just dabbed over it again, just to make sure I get as close to the mask. It doesn't really matter for these sort of cards, because they're supposed to be a bit grungy, so if you mess a bit up, it's actually the enjoyment of crafting. So I'm going to leave this to dry now before I peel this all off, and then come in with the pink champagne shimmer. So I let this dry for about 5 minutes. It didn't take longer, and I took the strips off and I took the mask off as well. If you want your snail to have a white background, you obviously could leave the mask on, or you might have to cut a new one, because mine tore when I took the strips off. So, but I just want this to be pink, like I have in the sample. So I'm now going to come in, and I decided not to use any of my ink blending brushes, because this has got some mica in it, and I don't want any mica residue on my ink blending brushes, and I didn't want to dedicate a new brush to just this ink. I like to use like my pink brush for a few different pinks. So I just use these makeup sponges. They're cheap, and I just dedicated this one now to this new ink. And if I do accidentally mess anything up, I can just dispose of this and get a new one. So they were really, really cheap. So you use these like normal inks. They're really juicy. Don't know if you can see that when you press it. You can actually see the moisture coming out. Always, try to dab it off a bit so the colour in real life is absolutely amazing. So, and what I did just yesterday, I just swiped it over it, and it blends really, really nicely. It's really, really easy to use, and I'm not a great blender, but this is really nice. So just set it down without too much pressure, and then I just press it down whilst I'm swiping it. So make sure you cover the black strips as well, because you want an even application of the mica on those. Trying to get a blend in here, and I'm looking from the side to see with a different light angle whether I have applied enough mica on the black strips. But these are really, really nice to work with. I never bought Lisa Horton products before. I had a Paper Craft Society box from her, but I haven't bought products from her before. But this is really, really great. So, and you also got the mica shimmer. It sort of spreads differently. I've got a bit more on that side. You could obviously, I just went with a stripe direction. You could obviously go against this and get a bit more texture in, but I think this is really, really pretty. I might put a bit more there because that still looks a bit bare. Yeah, really pleased with this. So now I just want to stamp the snail in black. I think I will actually do the same as I did here. Stamp it in black and then offset the white a bit. I quite like the look, although it was more or less accidental on this one. So I'm just getting my stamping platform ready, and then I'll be back. Okay, so I've put my card in the stamping platform, and I've got my stamp here, and this is where I went wrong last time. I just put it on an acrylic block, and I think it's definitely worth putting this in the stamping platform. And I left the gaps here, so I should really be easy to align this. I try not to move it too much once I put it down, because there might be some residue from my Versamark on it. And I think I've got it right this time. It's a bit of a funny one, really. Maybe need to move it up a bit, because obviously the gap of the edge of the silicone is a bit misleading. It sometimes works like a magnifying glass, so it's difficult to see, but I think this is fine now. So I'm going to close this. Oh, I knew this would happen. I just need to move up my camera a little bit. Sorry, it's my stamping and my camera holder, and with my stamping platform it doesn't always fit. There we go. So I'm just going to ink this up now with my VersaFine ink. I've tested that the VersaFine ink is fine on the shimmery powder, the shimmer ink I should say. So I'm just getting a little cloth. You can't see that there because I've just moved it. I've got some ink residue there. I don't want that anywhere on the card, so I'm removing this now. So put it over, try not to knock the camera stand. I'm going to press this down. I've got my pressure tool here, which is just a doorknob or for a handle from a drawer with a bit of felt, and I made that myself. And I've said this before, the visible image stamps stamp really nicely. It's not squashy silicone. It's really, it's photopolymer, and that really holds the shape. So yeah, I'm pleased with that. Let me show it closer to the camera. So I've got my image there now, and yeah, I think the placement is really good. So I'm contemplating now whether I should actually put the white on it. I'll just switch the camera off and have a little think. So I have decided against stamping over this again because I really like the crisp image, but I want to have some white accents. So what I'm going to do is, I've got this down to the ATC size, 2.5 by 3.5 inches, and I just want to have some accents around the edges, but I'm staying away from here and here because I don't want to cover the image. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to take my Versamark ink pad, and I'm just swiping this, and you see I've already applied my tweezers here to hold this. I'm just going to, sorry, I'm off screen there, I need to zoom out a little bit. I'm just swiping this along the edges there. I actually went a bit too high now, but doesn't matter. And the same on the edges here. I might actually use a brush because I really want this sort of brush motion. So I'm not quite sure whether that makes a difference. I do have a re-inker for that, so I could actually use that. Let's see if that works. So I'm just dipping this into my tin here. I have applied anti-static powder before, but you can see what happens. It wasn't dry enough. So no panic. So you can see the stays on ink and the other ink wasn't dry enough. So all I need to do is I'm going to brush the whole lot off back into the box. So this here, and I'm going to need to leave this to dry. So get any excess from the back. So no panic there. So I'm going to make sure I'm going to get this all off, give that another wipe with a Swiffer cloth, and then I'm going to heat set this before I come back. So I've heat set this, and now this should be dry. By the way, I always leave these little accidents in because I think we all can learn from them, and I find many YouTubers sometimes cheat. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a test. I'm going to put this in the powder without any VersaFine on, and you can still see there's still a few bits that aren't dry yet. So again, I'm going to brush this off, and I'm going to leave this to dry properly now. And I think I'll come back to this in about an hour's time because I actually have got other things to do in the meantime. So just a little tip for you here. So as I said, I'm going to leave this now, and for you it'll just be a second till I'm back. So I have left this to dry, tried it again with the powder, and it was still whether it was getting static here now. So I decided now to just dip it in on the edges there so it doesn't affect the bit that actually wants to take the embossing powder where I don't want it. And I've also decided, rather than using the ink pad and the brush as such, I'm using my Versamark re-inker, and I put a little bit on a little tile, so I can now use this to just put, maybe need to hold this properly for that, just to put this on the edges where I wanted. As I said, I wanted to have this sort of brush stroke look to it. Oh, sorry if I'm going off screen there. Got a bit carried away there. So, just using this. I'm just doing uneven bits there. Different length of strokes. Just put a long one here, I think. I think I'm happy with that. Maybe one more there. But I want to keep sort of balance by not putting anything here. I don't want too much there. So I'm setting this aside. giving that a good clean after. So my idea now is, if I dip this in, not to let it roll over the actual image, but just dip it in on the edges there. I'm not sure if I can actually do that. See, it still wants to stay there, so I will just have to use my brush afterwards and take it off where I don't want the embossing powder. So just getting a clean brush. I actually have some dedicated brushes just for that. So I definitely don't want any on the top here. So I'm brushing that off. And I don't want anything on the back here. A few stray bits there, so just giving that another tap. Yeah, and I think I'm happy with that then. I might actually run this through here a bit. I don't want it to be too solid. Yeah, I prefer that. So I'm just gently running my brush through it. Yeah, give that another tap, and then I'm going to heat set this now. I'm going to do this off camera and I'll show you the finished ATC then. So here are my finished ATC and my card. So I'm really pleased with the embossing. I think it is adds a nice texture to it without being too bold. And I fuzzy cut the sunshine from the sentiment because I thought the strip, if you look at this original one, it was too wide with the sanding on the top, and I couldn't just cut that one off because it's set a bit in, and this S is a bit too high. So I just decided to fussy cut this, and I think this is really nice now. And just to show you again the lovely sheen on the card, I think this ink is absolutely amazing. And then I used some leftover strips from the ATC that I cut off, and I wanted to work on a bigger card. This obviously was cut down from my trial scrap, but I didn't want to just make a small card, so I went for a 6x6, and I just used a white card base to go with the heat embossing, and I just played around a bit with these strips. And then I found, after I'd stuck this one on, there wasn't enough balance. This was a bit too bold on the top, and I like to ground things. So I just took 2 more pieces from my scraps. I stuck this one down first, and then this one I actually cut down a bit in size because I didn't want it to just copy this one. So just to show you a bit the thought process. And again, the sheen on this one is really nice. So yeah, I'm quite pleased with this. I thought about using some Nouveau drops or some flat beads in black, but I decided against this. I just wanted to be this sort of geometric look, and I didn't want to introduce any round shapes. Also, on second thought, I would probably have put these black strips up on some foam tape, especially because they go over these strips, so they've got a bit of different heights. But again, this is quite convenient to put in the post. So yeah, I'm really pleased with these. If you like the ATC and the accompanying card, and you might want to give me a thumbs up. And if you'd like to see more of what I'm creating, I'm usually posting 2 to 3 times a week, then you might want to subscribe to my channel. I'd be very happy about that, and I'll see you soon with another video.